Greetings, everybody, to the second episode of Off the Front. This month, I'm again super excited about our three women cyclists. I spoke to road racer Coryn Rivera, who is in the middle of her very first full season on a European team, Julie Emmerman, a sports psychologist who talks about team dynamics, and Lisa Hunt, a manager at 2XU and expert on benefits of compression. We'll get right into it with Coryn, who rides with Team Sunweb based out of Holland. She had an absolutely amazing spring and just extended her contract with the team for another 3 years. Coryn has 71 national titles, is the first American, male or female, to win the Tour of Flanders.
My name's Coryn Rivera. I'm a professional cyclist for Team Sunweb. We're out of Holland. So yeah, I've been racing professionally for I think I lost track a little bit, since I was 16 or so. But I've been riding since I was about 9. And I'm 20, I'll be 25 this year. So someone else can do the math on how many years that is.
This is your first year with Sunweb, and it's also your first European year. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's always been a dream of mine since I was a junior to race professionally in Europe, since that's where the standard of the sport is. And it is my first full-time season in Europe on a European team. In the past, I've done some national team trips and some smaller trips with my trade team to Europe, but never a full season.
It certainly seems like more women now, more U.S. women now are joining teams based in Europe. Is that true?
Yeah, I think more and more Americans are realizing that the standard of the sport and the highest levels of the sport is in Europe. And so we kind of have to take that challenge and make the jump over here to really go against the world's best.
And what's it been like this year with Sunweb?
Yeah, it's been a really great environment for me. I really thrive on their values and their goals, and they also align with mine, so it makes us a pretty good match. And the main idea of the team being to keep challenging, which is, continue to keep challenging yourself and the team. And even if you say win a race, there are always things to improve on. So it's a really cool and special environment to be in, and my other teammates, including the men, are world class, and it's quite an honor to be teammates with them.
And how has it been different from racing in the U.S., being over in Europe, and what the racing has been like that's different from racing in the U.S.? That was a very inarticulate question. I apologize for that.
No worries. I get it. Yeah, I think off the bike, culturally, it's a lot different. There's obviously a different language and a different place that you're living in and racing in. So there's not a Starbucks in every corner, and people don't speak English all the time. And you really kind of have to navigate a new way of living. But I don't mind it. I like something different. I like a challenge. And to be in Holland isn't the worst place to be. And then racing-wise, it's definitely, there's far more depth here in Europe, obviously, since this is where cycling is a bit more mainstream than in the U.S. So everyone is really competitive and really strong, and the peloton is much more aggressive, and the movement of the peloton, due to how aggressive the riders are and the way that the roads are narrower and twistier, makes it also a more challenging course compared to racing in the States. Is a bit more, wide open state roads or wider downtown roads, and it's pretty rare to find pretty narrow roads in the States with as much road furniture as there is here, like islands and roundabouts and things like that.
I like that road furniture. That's funny.
Yeah.
Has that been a challenge for you particularly? I mean, have you had to learn a lot dealing with road furniture and also the narrow roads and the crowds?
I think I really enjoy a challenge, and I enjoy different things, and I just take it by the horns and just do it. And I'm kind of an aggressive rider as well, so I kind of fit into the style of racing also, and just being constantly aware of what's going on. Yeah, at first when I was younger, first racing here, it took a little bit of getting used to, but I like that competitiveness, I like that drive, so it's kind of second nature for me to be racing so aggressively here.
I think, too, that, as a sprinter, that's sort of one of your qualities, isn't it? To be able to sort of rub elbows and also to take in tons of information and process it quickly.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. And that's something that I not really find easy, but I think since I've been doing it since I was young, it's like second nature for me. So it doesn't take too much energy to process in my mind. And I like quick moving, races.
Nice. And how did you end up on Sunweb?
The team had been talking to me for the last couple years, and they've seen what I've done here in Europe and my talents back at home. But I just wasn't quite ready to make the jump over because I was still finishing college at Marian University. So the timing was just right this year to go full on with a European schedule now that I had graduated last December.
And then you just signed a 3-year contract as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Yeah, I had a really, really amazing first half of the season even.
I'll say.
Pretty cool, and I don't know how I can top it, but they've acknowledged that, and it's clearly a really good place for the both of us. So I extended for another 3 years.
That's great. From what I can tell, you really like being part of a team, and you like being part of a well-oiled machine, and it sounds like that is true on Sunweb. And is that true am I reading things correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, not only do I like a well-oiled machine, but so do the teammates and so do the staff. So it makes for a really well-flowing environment. And yeah, we all have the same goals. We all have the same vision for the day or long-term or for the race. So it makes everything really easy. And there's clearly a good chemistry within the team too. And regardless of language or where we come from or our age, we are all usually on the same page, and I think that goes to show in our performance on the road when it's the moment, and not much communication is needed between teammates because we all kind of get it and we're all on the same page. So it's
great.
A really special feeling, and I don't think it happens often and everywhere, so it's pretty amazing, I think, for it to all click in the first year.
Yeah. Can you explain a little bit about how cycling teams work in terms of riders having a specialty or a different role? And, as a sprinter, how do you fit into that?
Yeah, typically within a cycling team, there is kind of a captain, someone who has a really good overview of the team and the race and has a lot of experience. And sometimes they aren't really like the leader for the day, but they are able to make really good decisions on the road. And then there's a sprinter, which is more of a role that I put myself in. And so they kind of finish the race off at the end, especially if it comes to a group finish or a small group finish. And that's, 10, 20-second maximum power burst at the end of the race to get to the finish line, whether you're winning by millimeters or by bike lengths. And then there's climbers on the team, which obviously can go uphill really well. And then there are riders called domestiques who are kind of your worker bees. And they really put out a lot of energy, more so in the beginning of the race, to cover breakaways or chase breakaways down for the leader for the day, depending on what the race is like.
I know that you're a sprinter because I recently saw the video from the Prudential Ride London. You have quite a kick in that video.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think that is probably one of my best sprint finishes to date.
That's excellent. And did you have a lead out, and do you normally have lead outs? Does your team work that way?
Definitely. We'd like to control the race and put our best foot forward and take initiative. And we have the team to build probably one of the strongest lead outs. So it's really something that we pride ourselves on and that we work on. And we have a really good mix of riders that make a perfect lead out. And to me, I think a lead out is probably one of the purest forms of teamwork where each rider has to put in 100% and really feel what's going on within the race and what the sprinter wants to get to the line first. And like a really good example for that was Tour of California on stage 3, when each rider took a really, really strong pull and delivered me to the line in first place with really no competition. So like our lead out was that strong that no one could even come close. And so it's really, really special for it to go perfectly like that. And there were still some mistakes that we could have improved on, but a team performance like that in a lead out is really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree with you. What do you think makes a good teammate?
I think having good understanding and the fact that you both have each other's backs. So I think when I'm the sprinter and I have a lead out rider, say, they go early, a little too early, and it leaves me out to dry, maybe I can make an adjustment and let another rider in so that I could still finish well, or say they go even longer and then, I'm delivered perfectly to the line. I think we both understand that the goal and the objective is to get me to the line first. And so we're both able to make adjustments to how we're going to do that.
It sounds like you really respect your teammates.
Yeah, I think respect and trust is a huge part of having good teammates for sure.
Sort of a related topic, I saw that at the Giro Rosa you guys did a triple T, and that's one of my favorite events. How did it go?
Yeah, it went really well, and surprisingly for the riders that were there, we got second to Bulls Dolman, who are the defending world champs in the team time trial. So it was a really good performance for us, and my first team time trial with the team. So it was cool to be a part of that and really work together with the girls to have a team effort.
Cool. That's awesome. Do you have a coach?
I have a team coach on Team Sunweb. His name's Hendrik.
Is he everyone's coach?
No, he's the coach for a few riders, and so basically we have a group of coaches. But on the team, they actually call them trainers, but in my American mind, they're called coaches. But there's a group of coaches that coach all the athletes, and they all communicate with the directors and staff and everything. So it keeps everything on one page, and it keeps everything well guided and communicated. So it helps everything, be pretty well communicated and honest.
It certainly sounds professional. I love that.
Yeah, and that's why I like this team, and I've signed on for another 3 years because I do feel like I am a professional here, and everyone takes this seriously, and it is a professional sport. So it's a very cool place to be.
So one of the questions that I've been thinking about a lot with the women's peloton these days is pay equity, and particularly with La Course as the 2-day event in the Tour de France. I was wondering, what are you thinking is the current conversation in the women's peloton about equity and pay and race length and prize money and sponsorship, and what are you seeing, and do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I speak pretty strongly on this subject, and we sacrificed just as much, if not more, than the men to do the sport also, and I don't think we race any less than them as far as effort goes, and we're having longer distances in our races, and we race hard, and there's a lot of teamwork involved, and it's hard sometimes when you see at Flanders, which is one of the most prestigious road races on the calendar, where the winner of the men's race makes 20,000 euros and the winner of the women's race makes 11,000 euros, and then you still have to split that with your other teammates, and as a female you're pretty much left with nothing, and you didn't work any less because of that number. So it's a bit frustrating, and sometimes it's hard to make a living in this sport depending on where you're at, and I feel like there should be a minimum wage where you're able to live and you can actually call this a profession. And for female cycling at the moment, I think half of it is still a hobby, and people ride for free so that they can have an opportunity to just race. And so, it's a really touchy subject, and I think things are moving in the right direction, but a bit slower than everyone would like. But there are a lot of things that really can be improved within the sport.
How would change happen?
I think a lot behind the scenes politically between the UCI and the riders and the teams. I think there needs to be better regulation between the UCI and the teams so that it can actually be called a professional team, that you're treating your riders well and that your riders are happy and they're well taken care of, and this is actually a profession. It's one angle, and then also exposure with the media. And what I hear most is that people want to watch our races more, and it's hard when people want to stay informed and involved when there's really no information on what's going on while we're racing super hard,
Oh my God, the coverage of the Giro Rosa was terrible.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's the most prestigious road race or stage race on the calendar. And that is also something about European cycling, that certain races hold so much prestige because of, its history or where it is and what routes you do. And it holds its value in that, but then it also, for example, the Giro basically has no prize money compared to, the men's Giro or other female stage races. And then on top of that, you also don't have much coverage. And people want to keep up with these races because it is such a prestigious race. Yeah, but there's just not enough exposure, and there is a demand for it. So there's on the media side of things, those demands need to be met.
Are the riders unified? I sometimes, I think back to Billie Jean King unifying all the tennis players and wondering if it's at that level yet.
Yeah, I think some things are in process to have a women's cycling union. And so I think that will also be a huge step forward in representing the athletes in the future.
Yeah, it's really hard when, I don't really have a solution for this, so this is not meant as a criticism at all, but it is hard when riders are willing to ride for free and have the attitude of, I just want to ride.
Yeah, I agree too, and it's a little bit embarrassing on my part because I was a rider like that back in the day. And
of course.
Granted, I was development and I was still in college, but this is, I'm racing at the highest levels of the sport, but I can barely pay my rent, kind of thing.
Right.
So it is frustrating, and I don't want to leave the sport that way for the next generation. And so I think a lot of us are really pushing to make some changes so that this is actually a professional sport.
Nice. And what would you like to see as sort of the women's version of the Tour de France? Do you have any plans for that in your mind?
I think like a week-long, between 1 week and 2 week stage race would be really ideal for a female Tour de France. And I'm more of a one-day racer, and I really enjoy one-day races, but to have female version of the Tour de France, I think between 1 to 2 weeks would be ideal. Maybe like race the last 2 weeks of the men's race or something and still finish in Paris. I think what happened this year where they went up the Col d'Izoard and then had a day in between and then had a pursuit style time trial was a nice change, but maybe a little bit too different and too soon. And it kind of takes away from the whole prestige of the race, not finishing in Paris.
Yeah. Switching to an entirely different subject, I saw on ABS-CBN website mentioned that you were Filipino-American. And do you identify that way? And is that something that's important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I am, a person of color and a female. So it's, I think, covering all minority bases there already. Yeah, I am proud that my parents are both Filipino. I was born in the U.S., so I am a full American citizen, and I take a lot of pride in all those things. And I think it just goes to show that it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what gender you are, but you can still race just as hard and accomplish whatever you want.
Awesome. I love that. Do you have anything that you'd like to add? I mean, you have such a incredible resume.
I mean, I can really go on about any kind of subject you put me on, I think. But I think I wouldn't be here without, all the teams and the successes and the struggles that I've had to deal with in the past. And so I think what has made such an amazing year so far has a lot to do with what I've done and who I've worked with in the past. So just a shout out to all the previous teams that I've been with and all the support and the haters for getting me here. So,
and what are your long-term goals? Well, short and long-term for the rest of the year and maybe a couple of years down the road.
Yeah, I think World Championships at the end of the year is pretty well suited to me. So focusing on that a bit, and then long term, obviously, I haven't been to an Olympic Games, so I would love to represent the United States in Tokyo come 2020.
Excellent. Do you know anything about that course?
Yeah, from what I've heard, there was a little bit of a release earlier this year that could be more of a classics rider course. So
Well, there you go.
hopefully it stays on that trajectory, and it'll suit me well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, and it was, I don't know, I'm going to keep following you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. It was my pleasure, and I love doing podcasts. So thanks for having me.
I now have Lisa Hunt on the line. She is the Northwest Territory Manager of 2XU. She's here to talk about compression, the benefits of compression, and how very specifically cyclists can use 2XU tights and socks.
I am the Northwest Territory Manager. My primary area is Northern California, Nevada. So my responsibility is sales and education. And most importantly is educating those retailers and their staff on what 2XU is all about, the benefits of the brand, the benefits of the products, and why we're far superior than any other performance sports apparel or compression apparel out there. So compression does three things. And 2XU compression does these things is it helps you warm up and hold your muscles in place. When you run, when you do exercise, your muscles oscillate. They move around, which can cause fatigue, which can cause soreness, can potentially cause injury. And so the compression holds your muscles in place. It also, because of the graduated compression, and what I mean by graduated compression is tighter at the extremities, a little bit looser. So tighter at the ankle, a little bit looser going up the leg. So it promotes circulation of the blood. So it helps with warm up, which also reduces the risk of injury because your muscles are warmer. And it helps with performance. There have been studies done that by wearing compression, it will reduce fatigue and it'll make you feel better. It will make you potentially run faster or run longer. It definitely reduces fatigue. And then finally, it helps you recover because, with the graduated compression, pushing the blood, the lactic acid from the ankles up back into the heart, clearing all the bad stuff out, bringing back the good. So the benefits are quite significant.
You had mentioned that the cycling products of 2XU it's not a huge line. And since this is a cycling podcast, can you talk a little bit about that?
There are billions of brands out there that make fantastic cycling clothing. 2XU does have cycling clothing, but their real emphasis on the bicycle end of it is on for triathlon. So tri-suits that you can wear while you swim, while you ride, and while you're running in a triathlon. But they do have cycling clothing because many triathletes go out and train just on the bicycle, and they don't want to just wear a tri-suit.
So if you're a cyclist and you're interested in the benefits of the compression, how would you recommend how would you recommend the cyclist to use a 2XU, and also which products maybe would you direct us to?
Well, I would say that the primary use would be for recovery. So after cycling, although if you're a cyclist and if you're a runner, you can always wear the compression socks, which will really help with your legs. But I would say post-ride, putting on either a pair of socks or a pair of compression tights, we make a specific tight designated for recovery, will really help you, because I think 99% of the athletes out there, cyclists out there, don't realize how essential recovery is. So when you're off the bike, when you shower, when you change, slipping on a pair of compression tights or socks is incredibly beneficial. I mean, not many of us have the benefit of getting a massage every day like the pros do.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, I know. And so many of us, maybe we ride early in the morning and then we sit at a desk or we're driving in our car all day.
Or we're on our feet all day.
Or we're on our feet all day. I mean, what happens is all the blood pools down to your ankles. You get swelling in your legs ache. By wearing compression socks or compression tights during the day, it will help alleviate that.
So what are you personally doing, and do you have any anecdotal evidence you can share?
So, I mean, I work out when I do CrossFit. I wear my 2xU tights every single day, which they're fabulous. I call them my security blanket because whether I'm running or whether I'm weight training or whatever, it holds me in place. It makes me feel better. But right afterwards, when I get home and I shower and I change, I have to get into a car and drive around a lot, or I'm sitting at my computer. So I usually slip on either my recovery tights, or I put on my socks, my compression socks. And before doing that, I would get what you call cankles or thankles. And so, your feet, like you look down and your ankles would be swelling up and your feet would ache and whatever. But now I don't get that feeling anymore. I really don't. You know what? I may look like a goon sometimes because in the summer I'm wearing these socks and a pair of shorts. But you know what? I don't really care. I want to feel better.
That's awesome. That's great. Are they the tall socks?
Yeah.
And I bet they're black too, right?
Well, I have some striped ones that are pretty awesome too, okay. And I have some pink ones.
Cool. Do you want to add anything just to finish up?
Well, I would just say that anybody that wants to feel better should go out and go to their local run shop or their bike shop and ask if they've got 2xU compression, because they'll feel better. And if they can't find it, just direct them to me and I can help them find a place.
All right. I'll do that. Well, thank you, Lisa. Thanks for being on Off the Front.
Anytime.
Today on the line for our tip, I have sports psychologist Julie Emmerman. In addition to her clinical practice, she races professionally, most recently with Visit Dallas DNA Women's UCI professional cycling team. I've talked with Julie a couple times, including in episode 9 of Hear Her Sports, my other podcast, if you want to hear more from her. In today's conversation, we focused on team dynamics. Julie has worked with teams and advised team staff on how to create cohesion throughout the long season. Here, she offers us some wise and inside perspective on being a good teammate and working well in a team situation. We dive right into the pros and cons of riding on a team. So let's get started. I mean, one of the things that I really liked about racing on a cycling team, and also the thing that I didn't like, was the team dynamics, because when it's good, it's so good, and when it's bad, it's really not good. So have you figured out ways to more consistently make it good, and what are the sort of the characteristics of a team that make it good?
You're right. When it's really good, and it's a magical thing, it seems like, when it's really good. Most teams and most team experiences are where it's a little bit of both. And part of the reasons for that are just, it could be around the stressors of the season for any particular sport team that we're talking about, and how people manage their stress throughout their competitive season, how that team is impacted by various injuries or other external events that are going on. But then in a more vacuum-like situation, if we were to try to narrow it down and simplify, team dynamics are hard because people bring such different strengths to the table, and it's critical to have enough of each so that you're adding to the recipe, and where there might be an overlap, trying to help people play their strengths off of one another. So there's a lot of things that go into a positive team dynamic. So some of the basics are, allowing people to fulfill the roles that they naturally gravitate to. So in any group, you're going to have at least one person who probably will want to assert a leadership type position. Some people will naturally fall to the background. One person or two people, depending on the size of the team, they adopt usually like a class clown type dynamic or persona. Some people are very shy and withdrawn and take a longer period of time to come out. And then once they do, they're really, really comfortable and boisterous. So allowing people just to have that kind of individuality and let their strengths come naturally, I think is one really important part of setting a good foundation for a team. And then once you're able to let people feel comfortable and safe being who they are, coaching them along in their roles respectively so that they're maximizing that. So you may have a really good natural leader, but who's rough around the edges and maybe doesn't realize ways he is speaking in a way or she is speaking in a demeaning way to her teammates. Or you may have somebody who's incredibly gifted athletically, but maybe is less verbal, and that leaves a lot of room for confusion on the part of her teammates because they're not sure how she's feeling or how they're being perceived or if she's connecting with others. So coaching people along like that can oftentimes be helpful. It's not that you want to turn the introvert into an extrovert, but you want to be able to help that introvert use the words she wants to use to connect with the team in ways that are relevant and helpful for the team and for her.
How do you make the non-winners or the support riders or the people that hang out in the background? How do you make them feel valuable, or how do you support them in a way? Because every rider has to feel valuable on the team, and if you're not, there's certain value to winning, and you get all these accolades, and so how do you make the people who aren't winning feel valuable and help the winners make the other riders feel valuable?
Well, I think, whether we're talking about cycling or any other sport, it's essential to show appreciation for your teammates because no one can do this alone. Absolutely no one. And so even if you have some kind of star player, they still need their teammates. And so showing appreciation is critical. Letting people know, even if that team leader, I don't want to say leader and assume that the team captain is always the team, like in a cycling situation, is the GC leader. But if you have the person who's expected to perform the most, whether it's basketball or cycling or whatever, if that person isn't able to do what they normally do for whatever reason, they still need to show appreciation for the workload that the others carried. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think it's sometimes hard. Like you talked about, everybody has their way of communicating, and I think, I've seen some leaders be really good at showing that appreciation. Not just in sport, in business as well. Some leaders are really good at showing that appreciation in an honest and seems honest way, and some people just aren't.
Yeah. So I think in any team environment, it's a natural lead into the importance of debriefing. Because in a debrief meeting, you're able to assess what went well and where people can grow and maybe do things differently, whether it's just simply communicating or, what they need to do differently athletically. But it's always really important to have a debrief in a context where you've already had time to settle your thoughts, settle the emotions, and think very constructively about how you want to communicate your message as a member of the team. How can you best communicate that, what was important to you, or where you have confusion, or where you have strong feelings about something in a way that isn't shutting others down? And it might sound a little bit utopic because obviously passions run high in any team sport. But if the goal is to raise the bar of our performance, it only serves us to be able to calm ourselves down and put some rationale to what we're thinking and really be mindful of how we're communicating, because otherwise we're going to lose our teammates. Morally, we'll just lose them. No one's going to feel good about showing up and working their butt off, if the consequence is getting shamed or, publicly shamed in front of the team, for example. So it's important for cohesion to handle those types of meetings really well.
So if you're a team member and you want to be good at what you just described, what are some tactics for yourself as a rider, as a teammate, to go into those meetings, those debrief meetings, and be prepared?
I think the first thing is to recognize, are you in a place emotionally where you're able to really make use of this meeting? Do you need more time? Is more time available? Is that something that's practical? Sometimes it might be and sometimes it won't be. If you're a team that has a long bus ride back to, your hometown or whatever it is, maybe there's a little bit more time that you can have before everyone discusses things. So I think the first thing is to really check in with yourself to recognize what's my temperature right now? Am I able to hear things without getting defensive? Am I able to communicate in a way that welcomes others and helps them join with me or understand where I'm coming from, or expresses my confusion in a way that I want it to be heard? Or am I too angry and, still emotional about this where it's not going to come out in a way that's helpful? And if time's not available, I think sometimes it's important to be able to say, you know what, I know I'm not communicating this as well as I want to, but given the limitation on time, and I recognize I need more time to process this, but right now what I'm feeling is I just da-da-da-da-da. So it's not going to be perfect. It's not realistic to think that people are going to communicate perfectly in any kind of heated situation, whether we're talking, regardless of sport or business situation that's heated or in any group dynamic. But to have the wherewithal to know, am I even in a place right now I can hear and speak constructively?
I like the idea of just taking some time, or asking to be able to take some time.
Yeah. And if you don't feel that you are in a place to do that, hopefully there is somebody else on the team, because the chances are if you're feeling heated about something, others on the team are feeling heated as well. Hopefully there is a leader on the team, staff, for example, who recognize what's needed at that time. And what it sounds like what's needed at that time is everyone needs a little bit of space and time to feel like their feelings are, legitimate, and that as adults we need to compose ourselves and be able to figure out how to communicate respectfully.
Are you able to take it from the rider's perspective? If you're coaching an athlete or working with an athlete and they're looking to get on a new team, how would you advise them to go about that process?
I would encourage them to talk to other riders who have been on that team, who are currently on the team, as well as those who've been on the team prior. I would ask questions about the level of professionalism amongst the staff. I would ask about the level of consistency in terms of leadership and everything from like when you get equipment to how travel is organized, how, if you were receiving a stipend, how consistent and professional is all of that handled. And if, especially in women's cycling, where a lot of things are done on such a shoestring budget, I would ask questions like, okay, so when the budget did run short or when this happened, how was it handled? Were things done as best as possible when people had to scramble, or did you feel like you were really being undermined and not given an opportunity to succeed in the sport because of those types of issues?
I love that, because it totally recognizes and acknowledges the fact that there's not a lot of money going around, and sort of confronting it right off the bat.
Yeah. So, for example, if the team needs money to get from race A to B, how did they go about doing that? Did they wind up, selling T-shirts and having a bake sale, so to speak? I'm not trying to be crass. Or did they sell your bike?
Right.
What is going on that's going to help that, help you get from A to B? Or do you not get to go to certain races because now the budget's run out and you have to, suddenly support yourself?
Right. Such important questions.
Yeah. So I would ask about that. I would ask about how rosters are picked. If you have a group that's, 12, 13, 14 riders deep and 6 to 8 get to go to any particular race, how are those things selected? What did I cover already? Travel, if there's any salary or a stipend. I would ask about team management and professionalism on that part. I would ask about travel commitments, time commitments, what racing opportunities there might be.
I like the idea, too, of talking to former teammates. How would you suggest that rider be a really good teammate? What can that rider do?
That's a great question.
To make life easy for everybody and for themselves?
I would first and foremost say show up with clean bicycles. Show up with clean gear. It goes a long way. I would just say consistently show up with clean gear. I cannot emphasize that enough. I would say in your own realm, be prepared, whether that's clothing or anything that you might need as far as, things that are you need to succeed. Like, do you need a foam roller? Do you need earplugs? Do you need music for your warm-up? So bring a charger to charge your iPad, or, whatever it is, just try to be as self-sufficient as possible. It's okay to ask questions, especially in the beginning, but for the most part, you want to just be self-sufficient, ready, and timely, so that you're not creating extra work for any of the staff. So that's those are some of the more concrete things. I think also what's really important in order just to be a good teammate is listen. Just listen and take in what others are saying around you, and ask some questions of your teammates and be yourself, but also be aware that, for example, at any given race, if you have a good or a bad day, it's not that you want to mute your experience, because I don't think that's necessary, but you need to always remember that there's 6 or 7 other teammates with you around you all the time, and they too have had their individual experiences in that very same race. So, there is time for you and room for you to either celebrate or, be miserable because you were involved in a crash or something happened mechanically. But it is also really important to put that aside and make room for others to have their experiences as well. Another pointer I would suggest is, if you feel that you want to complain about something, I would also encourage people to come up with some type of suggestion to offer to the group. So if you're not liking the way something is happening, instead of just complaining about it, come up with a suggestion as an alternative. That way you're not necessarily coming across as a downer or someone who's pulling negative energy into the group.
Is there anything you want to finish up with? Any comments or anything else?
One thing to add about the team perspective is that I think it's important to keep in mind, I guess in some situations you'll have a fully mature team. Everyone is experienced and kind of on the same level of maturity as an athlete, which is helpful. But then there's also going to be variations in terms of emotional maturity and just where people are in their life. So that's one thing. But if more typically you have some developing riders on a team, and then you have some experienced riders on a team, and I think it's really important for people to remember that those people are there to learn and to give them a chance. A lot of people are talented enough where they can get into cycling, for example, based on just physiology, but it takes a while to learn all the etiquette, the team dynamics. That takes a while to get to know, just how races play out strategically, what's helpful and good and tactically smart versus what isn't. I mean, I'm still learning those things, and I've been around, I think, forever now, but it's, to allow room for that to happen is critical if the sport's going to grow.
Do you think that the sport is getting more mature in that way, with really knowledgeable, experienced directors and staff and riders who have enough experience when they show up at the pro level?
I'm glad you brought that up. I think that there has been significant improvement, especially, I can speak to the North American scene professionally. I think people like Rachel Heel and Mari Holden have done wonderful things at that level to really develop a lot of riders. And sometimes when I'm out there, I'm just so impressed with some particular rider, and I find out later she's only 21 or 22. And I'm thinking, wow, how does she get all this experience so far? Because it's obvious what she's putting out there has so much more to do with her knowledge than just pure strength on the bike. And then you have other women who are fantastic, like Allison Powers, who has been working really hard at developing that next level of development riders that are capable of handling themselves at the UCI level or the North American circuit, bigger races. So helping to develop those riders as well. She's doing fantastic things. And overall, it yields a much greater depth of field.
I mean, one of the things that I've noticed, and I can articulate now after your response, is it seems like there's so many more female directors and staff people than there were when I was racing.
Yeah, I would think that's true, which is great because, people just have that much more inspiration, especially when it's coming from riders or if there's a director that the riders can say, wow, this person accomplished this, this, and this, and I can put my faith and trust into her because of this, she's got this credibility. It's an automatic buy-in for the athletes. Yeah, so I do think that in those ways the sport has grown and has been going in great directions. And I really give those women a lot of credit because it's not easy and it's a lot of work and a lot of painstaking work that I can only imagine. So I really want to give props to them.
Sure, I agree. And I'll have to say that talking to Megan for Hear Her Sports, I just have a new full optimism for women's cycling, which I had not had.
Good.
Yeah, so it's very exciting.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is fun. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, that wraps it up for episode 2 of Off the Front. A huge thank you to all 3 of my guests, Coryn Rivera, Julie Emmerman, and Lisa Hunt. You can find links to their website and social media on episode notes of the show at wisports.com. While you're on the site, sign up for our monthly newsletter. When you sign up for the newsletter, you'll automatically be entered in the sweepstakes for our official medical bracelet from Team RideSafe. Find out more at teamridesafe.com. We are on all the social media channels at WisSports, and if you'd like to drop us a line with suggestions, comments, or questions, email us at info@wisports.com. We'd really like to hear from you. Please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcast or however you are listening. It really makes a huge difference in spreading the word about everything WisSports is doing for women and sports. For more of me, Elizabeth Emery, listen to my other podcast, Hear Her Sports, available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and at hearhersports.com. Every other week, I talk to an exceptional female athlete in a wide range of sports. Find me also on social media at Hear Her Sports. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back next month with another episode of Off the Front.